Good morning, YouTube. Just gonna have some coffee. Some Don't know what's going on. Some kind of force here stopping this mug getting closer to me. I don't know why. Ugh. Hang on a minute. Let's just try something here. Ah, hmm, that worked. Okay. All right, enough shenanigans. Today's video is going to be a topic that I found very hard to find information on when I first started getting into photography. Um, this is as the subject title matter says. This is a video about how do you actually get good at photography. I know when I first started out, I was on forums and pages and YouTube, and I saw so many people's work that I thought was just incredible, really beautiful work. And I knew my work sucked and it wasn't anywhere near as good. And that still is the case today, but that's beside the point. But I always felt as though like I didn't know how do I get there? How do I get to there? How do I get better? And kind of respecting this kind of idea that you are on a kind of graph and you're progressing and you want to get better rather than just stay the same. So today's video is actually a question to you. What have you people found interesting in getting better? And that's what I want to explore today. So the first thing I'm going to give you, say 9 or 10. I haven't worked it out yet. This is all as always. It's I just record these things just on a whim. But I'm going to give you sort of about 9 to 10, I think, tips or things that I have felt that have really elevated and got me significantly better at photography. And I would like your comments and views as to whether you think the things I'm saying today are valid, or if they're not needed, or whatever. So number one is, I'm just looking at my notes here. Number one, don't ever ask for constructive criticism on a public forum. All right. So that one might seem like a really a big no-no. But really, honestly, when you start out in photography, you don't know what you don't know is a really true thing. And if you upload a picture asking for constructive criticism, you are opening the gates, man. You're opening the floodgates, and everybody with an opinion is going to give you their opinion. Now, the problem with this is you just don't know whose opinion is good or who's bad. Who's going to give you good advice? Who's going to give you bum advice? Because absolutely, you're going to get people who think they're good and they're crap, and they think they have an opinion, and they are missing the entire point of an image, and all sorts of stuff is going to go in, and you're not going to be able to work out who these people are if you just simply just open it up. Hang on a minute, I've got a phone call coming in. I'll be right back. And I'm back. So you have a situation where you open up the gates and everybody's going to comment, and I just don't think it does the newbie any help. It doesn't do you any help, because you just don't know yet. And if you're getting people who have an opinion but they're not sharing much of their own work, then how can you gauge whether their opinion matters? Because you could get people who are retired, who no longer really shoot, that really know what they're talking about, but you can also get people who just like to have an opinion and their work is awful and they don't know what they're talking about, but they think they know what they're talking about. So my advice to you is, don't ask for constructive criticism on a public forum. Instead, find people's work that you like, that you appreciate, you think is good, better than your own, and start trying to open a dialogue with them through a private message or whatever. So I think in a way, you're kind of almost looking for a mentor. If somebody will be able to mentor you a little bit. But that would be rule number one, is don't open it to everybody. Be selective with who you want to listen to for improvement and constructive criticism. Okay, number two. This is a bit of a controversial one, but it's the University of YouTube. I don't have any formal qualifications in photography at all, and I just learnt everything I did from my homework, basically, just YouTube. And I'm not somebody who can read very well. I think I have undiagnosed dyslexia or something like that, but I learned so much more from a visual perspective than a book. And I also think there's some little fallen stuff on YouTube that falls through the cracks in a video that you wouldn't really get from a book. I mean, if you even watch a model shoot with a photographer and a model, and they have done some BTS footage on that, you can really get an idea of like, oh, okay, so it can actually be a bit of an awkward relationship between the model and the photographer, and then as you see through the session, they've resolved some of their body language issues, and they get along better with each other and things like that. And so you start to think, okay, so it's kind of true. It can be a bit awkward, and it gets better as the shoot goes on. The subject is taking cues better or whatever, and the photographer is having to jump into the frame and demonstrate the position that they want the person to be in or whatever, that you know. And I'm not sure some of that information really comes through in the book. It's quite easy to just see it and in YouTube. So some YouTubers are fantastic and well worth the weight in gold to watch those channels. Not me, okay, other people. But yeah, it's that would be number two. Is that's a huge resource there, but it does feel it's studying. It's like doing your homework. It's sitting down in front of you know, sometimes my browser is disgusting with 20 YouTube videos. Some of them are 50 minutes long, some of them are 8 minutes long. It depends, but it's stuff that piqued my interest. I want to watch, I want to learn, and try and incorporate it into it. So yeah, that would be number two, is actually do some homework, do some learning, because to get better at photography isn't always about just taking out the camera and just going out and practicing, because all you're going to do is not really know what you're doing when you've got your camera out there. You need to actually have a game plan with your learning and to accelerate and go, I'm going to try this thing that I saw on YouTube or read in a book or whatever, and go and try that. That's valid practice, but just going out and shooting doesn't make you get better. You know, you can just stagnate and just do the same old thing again and again and again. Okay, number three. This is the biggest one for me, okay? It's moving away from doing single image work and work towards doing a set of images. All right, this one is if I can give you one takeaway message today, this would be it. This is the thing that made me better than any other type of drill or practice, okay? I think when you see people's work, if somebody uploads, say 5 to 6 images, and they're all color, maybe one of them's mono, and you're looking through it, you're flipping through the images, and you're just seeing inconsistencies with those images, such as the white balance looking quite differently between some shots, and you can see that they're trying to look the same, but they're not doing a very good job. That is a flag for saying the photographer is not in control of the art form. They don't really know how to make a cohesive, gelled, consistent set. And I can still be guilty of this myself, but when I do things like weddings and stuff, it takes a long time. You can bunch of certain images, like, okay, the next 15 to 20 images of this part of the wedding book or album that I'm creating, the light looks like this, and this render looks good for that situation. But if I apply this rendering situation to every image across the wedding, some of them it's not flattering at all, but it is flattering for this section of images. And so you're trying to work within that bunch of images and steer each image together till they have a kind of nice cohesiveness to them. I think I don't know what it is, but it teaches you a lot about photography, to being able to strive. It teaches you subtleties that you just don't see when you just work on one image at a time. It's like your attention to detail is increased, and you learn the subtle things in white balance and pulling in the tints and the shadows and making sure there's, you know, one isn't slightly green, one isn't slightly pink, and so on and so forth. You really feel as though you get consistent, and I think that is just, it just increases your skills, your post-processing skills for a start. But it doesn't have to just be purely post-processing. It can be out in the field as well. If you're choosing to just shoot JPEG, then understand that the settings that you have, if you are an auto white balance or something and you're taking the camera from here to here to here, it could look quite different, you know. So you need to work on that kind of consistency. So as soon as you start with an idea mentality that I'm going to do a set of images, I think you get better. All right. Number 4, increase post-processing skills. By far, one of the biggest things that I learned when I started seeing people's work I admired, I quite often saw that it did come with an advanced knowledge of post-processing that I didn't have at the time. Now, that doesn't mean to say that people shooting film or anything else don't do good stuff. Of course they do. I'm just saying that there seemed to be a general sort of the better you get with your post processing, the images tend to it shows through the images. They know when you get really good at post processing as well, you know when to say stop, when to stop overdoing it and killing your image as opposed to supporting it and amplifying the content. So, you know, for sure, I think that this comes into one of my other points, which is that gear can help photography, like buying new lenses and cameras and stuff. It can help a little bit, but it is the weakest of all the things that you do to try and get better at photography. It should be at the very bottom of the things that you're thinking about to improve your photography. Unfortunately, I think it's at the very top. Everybody buys the latest lenses, buys the latest camera, thinking they're going to be a better photographer because they've got the latest and greatest, and that's not what I mean by that at all. I'm just simply saying that I think I saw a correlation between, say, you know, buying a medium format camera. You could shoot something really boring, but it kind of looks really incredible the way that sensor renders that compared to maybe APS-C or something like that. It's a different vibe. You could sell a shot. It could be a boring car in a car park, or you know, a trolley in an abandoned supermarket trolley in a car park. Just because it's shot on 6.7 or you know 6.45, it just looks really quite cool compared to just something lesser. That's what I mean by that gear can help sometimes. But I think that ultimately, though, if people were to spend $500 on tutorials to learn how to use software properly, to buy a subscription or buy a perpetual license or something, and actually take the time to learn that software thoroughly, that will bring your photography way higher than buying any new camera and lens or body. And that's what I mean by that. So invest in your post-processing skills is a huge one. And that means not only just spending the money on it, it means taking the time to learn it, because time is money. And yeah, you just have to sit down and learn those things. If all you're doing is, you know, moving a couple of sliders in post-processing, thinking you're post-processing, think again. You know, there's a lot more that can go on. These programs are incredibly rich, feature-rich these days to really steer your image from something that's just to something that's like, wow, was a really cool shot. Okay. Number five, I don't know what number we're at. Practice and drills. Yeah, for sure. I actually, that's what I was tying in with before, this idea of going out your camera, try and have an actual purpose. I saw the other day, I'll find a YouTuber, I forget his name, but he had a lovely practice, which was something to do about colors. And every day for a week, you go out and find 10 images of this particular color. And it teaches you a lot in that. It's like a drill, a practice thing that you do. So you pick blue or something and you have to go out and find subject matter that's blue and photograph it and try and sell that image really well. And it teaches you a lot about colors and combination of the colors and what colors work well and all that kind of stuff. So I will link you his video. It's a drill I have to admit I have not really done myself. I'm wondering if any of you guys, excuse me, have done it as well. But I thought that was a really interesting drill to do, and I thought to myself, there must be a lot more sort of drills, because I think a lot of this stuff is like sport. You can play snooker, but like snooker players, they practice, they go down, they do the drills week in, week out, and like any other athlete. So you get better muscle memory with your camera, you do better work the more you do. But I think your practice does have to be quite specific, I think, sometimes to actually get better, rather than just going out with your camera and shooting. Okay. The next one. Okay. I'll put down here, cull harder. All right. I think this is a big one, because sometimes if we're thinking about photography, we're thinking about like how the public view you and your peers and all sorts of stuff. If you leave up more duds, then it shows you that sometimes you get lucky with a good shot, and sometimes your shots are kind of average. So you have to think carefully about what you share. I take, you know, I share a lot of my work online, and I take 10 times as many shots as I share. And sometimes I might edit for 20 minutes on a shot and go, it's nice, but it's dropping the standard of where I'm at too low, so I just leave it out. So be quite hard on yourself for culling, because people will only remember you by what you do worst, not what your best shot is. They'll judge you on your worst work always. So be quite ruthless. If you've worked on a set of, say, 6 images and you've steered them all together to being quite cohesive, and they all have something different to say in it, then I think, you know, if one's not really working, just drop it. Don't keep it in. If it's pulling the whole set down a level in terms of work, just get rid of that shot and just try and be a little bit more ruthless, I think, with your culling, with your portfolio and things like that. But I think that's kind of quite a normal thing to say. A lot of people would say that to you. You know, you're just going to be a bit more ruthless with your culling. I think I just reminded of another video that I saw by, I'm going to mention Sean Tucker twice because he's fantastic, but I'm going to mention a video that I saw of his the other day, which was about whether it ties into the idea of working on doing sets, because he talked about and I'll link the video. He talked about this idea of would you flip through this image on Instagram and stop and like it, or you know, and just that image can sometimes just be out of context. It's a really powerful image, but you just don't understand how powerful it is yet because you haven't seen all the rest of the images in that set and you don't understand the context to the image. And I think all that stuff is really, really true. That's the idea of working, I think, within a context and a set, and how that stuff can help with your imagery, rather than just bangers and really awesome shots that you know that are really good and just single images. There's not that there's anything wrong with that. You know, you should also have days where you go out and say, I'm just looking for one really good shot today, and I'm going to go out and get that shot. But what I'm just trying to say is, in terms of something to elevate your photography and make you better in general, being able to make a set is actually a hard skill that not many people really understand how to do. It's quite a lot more difficult than you think. But yeah, so Sean Tucker did that one about this this idea of sets, and I couldn't agree more with that. That's absolutely true, and that some messages and some images, people are not going to understand it because they haven't seen the broader picture. So bear that in mind as well. But the other thing I want to mention about Sean Tucker is, this falls into the next tip that I have, which is understanding psychology when it comes to imagery as well. We have, you know, I think he did another video where he was talking about composition, and when human beings look, they've studied psychology now. So when they study a flat 2D image, they will look straight away at the bright part of the frame. So if your focus of your image is on something that's a little bit darker and you have something very bright in your frame, it's going to pull the attention away from where you want it in the image. So there's a lot of things you can do better when you understand composition and elements that are distracting in photography. Then I think that's really important. That can really help your photography when you're out in the field and going, you know what, if I take the shutter right now at this particular shot, this subject looks good, this looks good, but that over there in the background, that's going to be too distracting. So you rotate your camera, you step a different direction to eliminate that thing somewhere that's a distracting element. I love photography because I think there are rules that you should do in photography for a better image, but at the same time you can always break the rules. It's a really perplexing kind of art craft. And I'll give you an example. So let's say, for example, you're doing a portrait shot of somebody and it's a street shot, and you haven't really noticed or paid attention, but they've got, like, in the background, there's a lamppost coming out behind their head, all right? And it's only until you get back and went, oh, the expression's lovely, the light's great, oh, damn it, they've got a big pole sticking out the back of the head. If I only just framed them a little bit differently, it would look better. That's kind of not up for debate, really. Everybody would agree that another version of this image with a lamppost not coming out the back of the head would make the better shot. You could say that's a rule, okay? However, there'll always be something where maybe some other rule where, I don't know, I'm just trying to think, something like, let's say you have like 5 or 6 people in an image and they're all spread apart and they each have a pole coming through the back of their head or something like that. Then it's kind of quirky, and it works because it's I don't know, drawing attention to the fact that it's not doing the rule. I don't know, but it could be cool if you break the rules too sometimes. But here's another example. Next time you do a landscape shot, and maybe there's a focus as a tree or something like that, instead of just taking one shot of this tree, do 10 shots. Do an f2 shot, an f2.5, 2.8, 3.5, f4, 5, 6, 8, 11. Do every aperture of that scene tripoded up of this landscape, tree in focus. Then get back home and go through your images. I guarantee you will find maybe a couple that have a better F number to sell this story than some of the other shots. So it's like another rule. It's like thinking, you know, aperture is an artistic choice or whatever like that. That's not necessarily true, I think. There always tends to be an aperture that is correct for that particular moment in time and for that particular scene. It's up to you to try and work out quickly what that aperture is. It's not that one is necessarily better than the other, but you might find, this did work best around about f4, f5.6 rather than f8 or f11 that I thought would work. So, well, yeah, if you do things like this, you'll find, I think that accelerates your learning and helps you get better as a photographer, because you're going to work out that, yeah, there's a lot more things that do actually work for a particular image than I give credit for. That's my opinion anyway. So yeah, you might find sometimes in the field when I'm out my camera, I can look at it and go, yeah, that f2.5, f2.8 for this particular shot, that looks good. And I'll get back home and I'll open up in the computer and I went, damn, this is just too shallow. I really should have used f4 for this, or 5.6. It's hard when you're out in the field with a small little screen to really garnish and get all that kind of information and work that out. It's not always a bad idea to take a multiple apertures of that particular shot if you've got time and it allows. Yeah, so that would be my my 2 cents on that. So yeah, so understand psychology, understand that we'll look towards faces in images, we look at bright parts and contrast parts will always pull our eye away, all those sorts of things. You understand those basic elements, I think they can help wonders with your photography. And lastly, I think that the thing most of all is try and ditch the ego. Okay, I think there's no room in improvement if you have an ego. If you must understand and respect where you are. There's always going to be people better than you. If you can look back on your work from 6 or 9 months ago, 12 months ago, and think, I'm better now than I was back then, that's great. You're on the path to getting better. But it never ends. You don't just get there and make it and you're good. You'll do some good work and then sometimes you'll do some bad work, and it's not a graph that just goes up, a linear. It will go up and down a little bit, but hopefully overall you're hoping that it's moving up. And just sort of realize where you are in the grand scheme of things, and that you can always get better. I mean, it's like I've done a few different career paths in my time, and you never stop learning. The technology and human beings, the industry just evolves, and you have to go with it, and you have to sort of understand that you are on a learning curve like with everybody else, and just be respectful of that. If you have too much of an ego, I think you're just going to thwart your ability to grow and prosper. So I'm bringing this video into about 20 minutes now, so I think that'll do. Maybe a little bit longer than that, but yeah, let me know what you have found in your photography that's helped you get better at photography, because I'm keen to know, because I'm still looking myself for ways to improve. And like whether it be to learn certain types of flash work, reverse key lighting, or something that can be interesting and give my work new life, and all those sorts of things. You never stop learning, but I'd be interested to know what you've found in your photographic journey, of what things you have found that have helped you get actually better at photography. All right, that'll do. Thank you very much.